What up, though? Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. We got to talk about NXT from September the 28th. Not my favorite episode of NXT, to be quite honest. Quite a bit of it was cringe. A lot of it was cringe. Not very good, kind of amateurish. This was probably the weakest NXT 2.0. I'm refusing to call it NXT 2.0. It's really NXT 3.0, and it's just NXT at the end of the day. But this is a very interesting episode. We got a lot of shit in. Yeah, whatever. All right, so we got to talk about the show. We start the show with B-Fab versus Elektra Lopez. But we really start the show with a Hit Row promo. And they ran down the card. Adonis said that tonight is all about the ladies. And it was an honor and a gift to be in y'all's presence. He's out here simping. I thought that meant that it was only going to be women's matches tonight, but I was wrong. That just means that the women's matches are the most promoted matches. Swerve says that nobody's coming for the North American title, just Escobar, but nobody in particular. Okay, he hasn't defended his belt in a long time, by the way. B-Fab said that the spotlight is on her, and she's going to beat the brakes off Elektra Lopez. I didn't like this promo. I've been very critical of the rapping of Hit Row, mainly because I don't like you don't just cut a promo, man. Like, we don't have to everything doesn't have to rhyme. Everything doesn't have to, bounce back and forth. Like, it's good to have rhythm between the group, all the, players bounce off each other. But they got bits in there where they kind of do, make fun of Adonis for being a simp and all that kind of stuff. But we don't need all that. Just cut straight up wrestling promos. Like, it's creative that they have a creative promo style. But at the same time, just sometimes straight up wrestling promos can be perfectly fine. You can do cipher segments without every promo being a cipher. And so I wasn't really on it. Plus, I think this match being so serious, it required a serious promo. So Elektra Lopez came out there. And then they proceeded to have the most aggressive green fight that I've ever seen. It was oh boy, the strikes were not good. The strikes they were going for it for sure, but the strikes just were not good. The guys are hanging around a little bit. They got into a brawl. We went to the commercial, came back. The boys were gone. So the girls were left by themselves, and B-Fab she's the greenest of the two, probably the greenest on the roster that I've seen so far. She didn't look very lost, but it's clear that she's not comfortable doing this. And this only being her second televised match was probably throwing her into the deep end a little much. Elektra Lopez wasn't much better, but she was better than B-Fab, that's for sure. The best spot was the crossbody on the chair, because that chair, that chair collapsed under the weight of Elektra and B-Fab. And then Elektra Lopez wins with the sit out powerbomb finish. Kind of cringe. The match wasn't that great, but we're watching a school here. Not everybody's going to be up to par. Not everybody's going to be good. Like I said, the bar for NXT is very low due to it. We know we're watching developmental now, so we have to take that into account. But B-Fab needs more reps. She needs to get into some real matches. Like, I'm talking, she needs to be in the ring with some veterans, not other people who are just as green as she is. She needs a mentor or something like that. But a lot of people have been saying that Hit Row is going to get called up. I don't see why when Swerve is carrying the North American title. And I don't see why you would call up Hit Row. You don't really need them. To put them on SmackDown, I guess. I don't see the benefit of that. I just don't see. I think that they're really needed in NXT, and they fit the motif of NXT. So, as far as being young and hip, they kind of fit. I saw a lot of other people who are saying that that a lot of their gimmick feels contrived, and that, to me, that's kind of how rap gimmicks are anyway. But we know that this is their doing. this is the characters they created. And too often, when it comes to WWE, I saw it with Shane Thorne, I saw it with Keith Lee, I saw it with Nikki Cross. People immediately jump to the conclusion that, old white dudes are writing their promos, or old white dudes are coming up with their characters, and they have no creative freedom whatsoever. It's like, no, they said, for starters, before Hit Row even started, Swerve had a podcast, the Swerve City podcast, where I think he did it in his studio. The whole thing about him being a rapper has been going on for a long time. So it goes to show that people don't even really pay attention. Like this whole him being a rapper thing is going on for years before Hit Row even formed. But it was their idea, and I believe they actually picked the members too. They've talked about this. Just because you don't like the gimmick doesn't mean that other people put the gimmick on them. Sometimes that's the case, especially if they can't come up with anything on their own. But a lot of the terrible stuff that we see, is the idea of the performers. Performers have weird ideas. Again, Conan, I believe, pitched, Max Moon? That was a Conan idea. He wanted to do that. I think sometimes people get the wrong idea. That's why I said, like, under a Jim Cornette video one time, is that when they were talking about Karrion Kross, and it was like, oh, they gave him this promo. And I'm like, man, you guys don't know who Karrion Kross is. He cuts those promos all the time. He did it on the Independents. Just because you know that scripts exist doesn't mean that everybody is reading a script. Most people are doing them, and they have let a lot of people, especially some people who have, haven't been around that long, they've given them some creative freedom. And Hit Row seemed to be that, but I think that the real thing with Hit Row is they kind of hit a wall when they became baby faces, and they got corny. Like when they were heels, it was fun. Now that they're baby faces, it's kind of like, I'm not really, they're kind of cocky, but I'm just kind of like, but I'm just over the rap stuff. To me, I'm just kind of over that. But whatever. Some certain people seem to like it. I love Swerve. I'm a big fan of Swerve. Adonis is cool. B-Fab needs some work. She might just need to be a manager. She's kind of that bad right now. And Top Dollar, I don't know. He's a penguin. I can't tell you. Well, I spent a lot of time on that. So let's talk about Index's honeymoon, which was, the vignette segments for the night. They were walking around and dancing on the beach. Dexter is writing in the sand. They're sitting, and the Garganos are watching them from the hotel, just watching them with binoculars. And I'm just sitting here. It's so creepy. It's like, it's real creepy that they're just watching them from afar, watching them have fun, no less. And that makes it even funnier because if they are on the beach, why aren't they having fun? Like they're spending their time watching Indy and Dexter, but the whole gimmick of the Garganos are that they're overbearing parents for the most part. Johnny sees that they're having too much fun. They're about to go play in the water. So he decides to wear a shark fin on his head and scare them out of the water because they were having too much fun in the water. The next vignette, he's bragging about scaring them off. And Candace wonders where they went. Like, where did they go? Like, you scared them off. Okay, so where did they go? And he's like, I guess they went back to the hotel room. And then you see that, Candace is kind of holding her pregnant belly. And Johnny is just kind of thinks about it. And he's like, oh no, I gotta go take them some protection. So he sneaks into their hotel room. And in the carry-on case is like 1,200 rolls of condoms. It's like 96 condoms in there. It is so absurd. And then, of course, because this would not be complete without him getting caught, they come back to the hotel room. Johnny Gargano bounces over the bed and goes hides in the closet. Then Indy and Dexter are pillow fighting, and he's in the dark closet thinking that they're having sex because she's like, hit me harder. Do it harder. And Johnny's in the closet freaking out. And, of course, You know, it's so weird, man. The voyeurism angle, it's so weird. And you know what? Maybe the dirt sheets are right. Maybe they are trying to make NXT edgier. But they were obviously there's a lot of innuendo. That's really all it is. It's innuendo. So Johnny gets caught. He was in the closet. Indy gives him a thumbs up. Then Dexter gives him a thumbs up and unfurls this this lengthy roll of condoms. What made me laugh is the earlier part where he finds the condoms, where he says, like, man, he told them to stay hydrated. He said, I wonder how they gonna stay hydrated. But it was funny. No, the honeymoon was fun. I wonder how long the honeymoon is going to last, because it seems to be like they're going to do this for several weeks. I don't know how long a honeymoon lasts. A honeymoon lasts for what, a week or so? So maybe we could play it out for another 2 weeks, just to, flesh out these characters. But I'm really enjoying the index stuff. It's legit funny. It's legit interesting stuff. All right. So our boy Joe Gacy is uncanceled. He is not canceled. He is back. And he said this ring is still our safe space. And that last week he made a huge impact. He made a bigger impact than Tommaso Ciampa, than Braun Breaker, than Odyssey Jones, than anyone else. And he did not throw a single punch. He made a huge impact with only using his words. And that he's the voice of a generation, the enlightened generation. And that he saw after this match that he saw a lot of triggered faces in the locker room. And he says that we can solve all of our problems with discussion and conflict resolution. And says that he is here to usher us into a new normal. But the funniest thing is he says, I'm inclusive. Oh, God. Joe Gacy is great. This is great. Oh my God. Normally I would say stay away from stuff like this. Normally I would. But it's rare that you actually see somebody go out of their way. And I love that they thumb their nose at it. Like, they took on all of the Joe Gacy references. And then they doubled down. They doubled down by bringing them back. Now, what they did, though, is they did kind of water it down a little bit. He still uses safe space. He still uses inclusivity. He still uses the buzzwords, but he uses them differently now. He still says this ring is our safe space, but he's not talking about his male privilege. But he's talking about his impact, about what he was able to do. How the mainstream media picked up on his existence and said that he was canceled. But he is not canceled. He remains uncanceled. I love it. I love it, man. I like rip from the headlines gimmicks. I don't mind it. I wouldn't mind if they were making fun of Trump supporters. As long as everybody gets a shot at being made fun of, I'm cool with it. The problem is always when it's one-sided. When you can make fun of one side of the political divide or one group of people, that's always going to be the problem, And we don't get a chance to do that too often, to take a piss out of progressives. But Joe Gacy is back. Joe Gacy is inclusive. He rules. All right, Zion Quinn versus Oney Lorcan. Zion Quinn is Daniel Vito, and he is another Samoan. They must have just signed every Samoan between the ages of 15 and 30 to a contract and just see who makes it. See who makes it. But he looks awesome. I think he played rugby or something like that. He looks awesome. I'm not sure about the name Zion Quinn. It's a little weird. Oney Lorcan was there just to test him a little bit. Pretty solid for the young guy. I'm really interested in looking at Quinn. We got a promo for Grayson Waller, which is an awful name. Absolutely awful. He positioned himself as a thrill junkie, a daredevil, a risk taker. He's a survivor. And we see a series of him skydiving and bungee jumping and surfing and whatnot. And he claims his first singles match in NXT will be for the Cruiserweight title. And that match was against Roderick Strong. And it was perhaps it was one of the better matches of the night. That's for sure. Roderick Strong doesn't have bad matches. He just doesn't have a personality either. Interesting notes that we found out Missy Elliott is a big fan of the Diamond Mine and Malcolm Bivens. It feels like a lie. It feels like a lie. For some reason, this feels like Malcolm Bivens made this up. But Waller is really good. He's fast. He's agile. I really like both of those things. His elbow drop from the second rope looked a lot like Mark Briscoe's Froggy Bow. So it was pretty dope. But otherwise, man, the match was very good. Roderick Strong wins with a leaping knee to the jaw. Pretty good, man. The Grayson Waller character, this doesn't have to be the end for him. I'm just interested in how you're going to portray the sort of daredevil risk taker gimmick. Just kind of see how that's going to go. But I'm interested. I'm interested in what he's doing. I think his name is Matty Wahlberg or something like that. I don't know. I'm not sure. Don't take my word for it on that one. Then we get another cringe segment. MSK, Grizzled Young Veterans, Carmelo Hayes, Trick Williams, Jensen, and Briggs. Oh, Lord have mercy. I hate these segments where somebody's talking and then other guys interrupt. The cringe really occurred from the very beginning. Despite the fact that all the blue check marks seem to like MSK because they're indie guys. That's the only reason they like them. And the people who don't like them because they're in NXT and not in AEW. But ultimately, they can't cut promos. They're terrible. They have no personality and no character. Grizzled Young Veterans are the only adults. They have character. They have personality. Zach Gibson is trying to make sense of whatever MSK just said about remaining tag team champions, old bulls or young calves, and they were making weird noises and stuff. Then here comes Carmelo Hayes, who says, "Hey, if you want to talk about future champion, just say my name. I got this golden ticket." What do he call himself? He's the chocolate and the chocolate factory or something like that. And he's got the golden ticket, and then Trick Williams said the tag team titles, they bought it. I don't know why he keeps saying that. That is very WCW from like 1999 or something. That's a No Limit Soldiers thing. I don't know. I don't know why he keeps saying that. Then Jensen and Briggs come out and cut off flannel shirts. They look like they're from West Virginia. They talked about being two guys who were headed to the bar to get some brewskis, but they heard people chattering about the tag team titles and decided to say what's up. This led Trick Williams to then go after them and called them a bunch of names that I dare not repeat. Not because they were so offensive that I dare not repeat them, but because it was such a mishmash of words that I didn't understand that I couldn't even dare to repeat it if I wanted to. All I can make out was something about boot scooting, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And of course, the Grizzly Young Veterans are the only adults in the room. And they don't understand what's going on, what's being said, because all these kids are talking in riddles, and I'm thrown off. So then Jensen started saying that he promised himself that the first guy who looked at him sideways was going to get popped. And therefore, he popped Trick Williams, and a big brawl broke out where MSK jumped on everybody with moonsaults. And I was just kind of like, no, never again. Never again do this. Never again. Right? No mas. Do not do this again. I like Carmelo Hayes. I like Trick Williams. I need Trick Williams to vary up what he says, but I do not need him speaking languages other than English. Okay? You don't need to sound, I don't know what's going on with his slang is a little too heavy. You might want to turn it down. Turn down the slang. Just cut a wrestling promo. I think they're trying to do a little too much with the black guys. Just let them cut straight up wrestling promos. If they came up with that on their own, which, I have to go back to what I said before, that maybe he came up with his own material. I would suggest you tell him to be more wrestling and less whatever that was. I like Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams together. I know Carmelo Hayes is not going to waste this grand opportunity on a tag team championship. But this was not a good segment. And this was too long. And these segments where people interrupt each other never end well. I just don't see the benefit of it. They're terrible. Moving on. Raquel Gonzalez says that she's not overlooking Frankie Monet, but she plans to defeat Frankie Monet tonight. And then Toxic Attraction shows up, and they interrupt this whole ordeal. Mandy Rose says that the belt looks great on Raquel Gonzalez, but will look so much better on her. Then we get Toxic Attraction versus Io Shirai and Zoe Stark, in which was probably a tie for match of the night. Believe it or not. I'm still trying to figure out, without Googling JC Jane, what her name in Evolve was. And I think it was Alicia. No, I want to say Alicia Taylor. But that's the ring announcer for NXT. Isn't it? So her name was it Alicia Taylor? Alicia Tyler? Or something to that effect. It was something. Alexis? I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'm going to figure it out one day without Googling it. I'm going to figure out who the hell JC Jane was in Evolve. In any event, this match was very solid, but it still was pretty clunky in spots. But Zoe Stark is great. She's tremendous. She has no personality whatsoever, but she's a great worker. I know that's probably because she's been doing this for so long. She's absolutely really good. JC Jane was able to keep up with her a little bit when it comes to the exchanges before she got lost a little bit later. Just showing her inexperience. All the girls did a big flying spot where everybody jumped off something at one point. It was a really hot spot where you had everybody, like I think Gigi Dolan did like a somersault off the top rope. It looked pretty brutal. It was pretty good. There were some really weird spots with JC Jane. She was out of position a couple of times. Like she was supposed to have been, stopping hot tags, but she didn't actually stop the hot tag. Instead, she just kind of floundered all over the place. I think, is the least experienced of everybody in the match, if I remember correctly, because Priscilla Kelly has been around for a long time, and of course Io Shirai is Io Shirai, and Zoe Stark is Zoe Stark. Io Shirai did a double crossface on them while they were in the ring, which is pretty wild. And the finish was not Zoe Stark, but Io Shirai with a moonsault on JC Jane. It wasn't a hot finish. I think somebody botched something. Mandy Rose was outside the ring distracting Zoe Stark, which seemed like a pretty good setup to help Toxic Attraction win. But it seemed like somebody might have missed their spot, missed their cue or something. In any event, Io Shirai pins JC Jane and they win. Didn't mind it. Didn't mind this at all. This was actually pretty exciting. I rather enjoyed the Toxic Attraction versus Io Shirai and Zoe Stark match. But what plays into this, since we're on the subject of Toxic Attraction, the main event, Raquel Gonzalez versus Frankie Monet. Frankie was frustrated in this match due to Raquel's strength, and even though she's inexperienced, and her aggression too. Like Raquel is really aggressive. Weirdly enough, Taya looked very lost at times. She was she was out of position pretty often. Like it seemed, or either that or Raquel was being so aggressive that she was out of position. But there was a few times where Raquel had to reach to throw a punch or whatever. And while the match was good and I enjoyed it, I just felt like maybe Taya's performance could have been better. I don't know if that was just me. I'm glad they gave them the overrun because they started this match at like 9:55 or I think it was 9:52 or something when they started this match. So they gave them some time in the overrun to work, and it really made a difference. So Frankie Monet loses to the Chingoa Bomb, decent to good match, and then Toxic Attraction comes out. They jump Frankie Monet and the Robert Stone brand, beat them up, sent them packing to Raw. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And then they encircled Raquel Gonzalez. Now this took so long that I thought she was going to join them. Like it took so long for them to jump Raquel Gonzalez. I thought maybe, are we about to get swerved? Is somebody about to make the save? What's about to happen? But she ends up hitting Gigi Dolan in the head with the belt while she was outside the ring. Mandy and JC Jane took her down, beat her down. Then all three of them jumped Raquel Gonzalez. And Mandy Rose holds up the title in the air, teasing that she is the next opponent for Raquel Gonzalez and the NXT Women's title. And you know what? I'm all for it. I'm okay with that. Am I okay with Mandy Rose winning it? Not exactly. But because I think that flies in the face of what NXT is. So unless you're going to call Raquel up, I think Raquel needs to win. But since it's 3 of them, you have at least, let's say, about 5 or 6 matches out of this. Because you have Raquel against each one of them once. Maybe a tag team match, maybe a 6-woman tag thing or something like that. Before you have the ultimate Rose versus Gonzalez match. So it ought to be fun. I'm enjoying Toxic Attraction. They got something. And they're being pushed as sort of, the top act, or one of the top acts in NXT. And it's okay. They bring sex appeal to the show without being unnecessarily over the top sexy. And then they're also very aggressive. That's part of their act, is that duality of not just looking good but also being deadly. So I like that. The name is a little on the nose when you think about it. All right, so we got a Braun Breaker vignette. He says that he's high energy. In the last 2 weeks, he feels like he's been shot out of a cannon. He says that he feels like he's got a locker room full of studs. He says that he doesn't care. He says, if you want a friend, get a dog. He doesn't give a shit. And that, Tommaso Ciampa, not necessarily a patient guy. And he sounds great, looks great. They talked about all his the mainstream media that is all over this Braun Breaker thing. We're in it. It's looking good for our boy Braun. Tommaso Ciampa warns us to not put Braun Breaker in the Hall of Fame quite yet, which I think is a great line. And it says that, message received. It took 908 days for him to get his title back, a title that he never was beaten for. And he doesn't see Braun Breaker being the one to beat him. And said that they will have their match eventually. And that Braun Breaker will drown in an ocean of his own inexperience. Okay, cool. I like that. I like that they're not rushing it. They're letting it build. They're not, doing too much in the way of trying to force this issue. Let Braun Breaker evolve. We know that he has a goal to be the NXT champion, but you might want to put some stumbling blocks in the way. Let's get some other guys in there who also want to be the champion, who want to stop him. Some other young guys, and make the journey rocky, as far as instead of him just being able to be laser focused on Tommaso Ciampa. And just put some rocks in the road. There needs to be some other people who are like, Braun Breaker can't be overlooking everybody else, can't be skipping over everybody else either. All right, Andre Chase loses to Boa. Andre Chase is hilarious. He wrestles in a sweater. God bless him for wrestling in a sweater. He also had pamphlets and collegiate music. People wasn't sure if he's supposed to be Dean Douglas or Chris Nowitzki. I say, it's all in the same vein. The funny thing is he is outside of the ring. He ends up outside of the ring. He calls Boa a son of a bitch. He's just spazzing out. He's really frustrated. He's spazzing out. And then Mei Ying spits smoke in his face because he has a wild temper. From there, he gets pinned by Boa. After he gets put back in the ring, he gets beat up. He gets pinned by Boa. But Andre Chase is not done for the evening because LA Knight's going to cut a promo. And LA Knight doesn't like Odyssey Jones because he's talking crap out of his head hole about the $1 million megastar. And Odyssey Jones appears, cuts his very soft voice promo about LA Knight, never seen anyone like him. Andre Chase comes through the scene and yells that that's bullshit. It should have been disqualification, to which Odyssey Jones, like everybody else, is completely taken by surprise at this guy who's cussing on TV, and he gets beat up by LA Knight. So LA Knight will apparently still be on NXT at least for one more week. He's going to be wrestling Odyssey Jones. That ought to be fun. I like Odyssey Jones. I like LA Knight. That ought to be fun. Dante Chen says he represents Singapore and the Singaporean people and what they stand for, which is passion, precision, and perseverance. That's not a character. So that's not a character. I don't know what he's going to do. Cora Jade and Trey Baxter are kissing all the time. And Cora Jade says she's the youngest person on the NXT roster. And Trey Baxter says to her that he hopes she doesn't make the same mistakes that he made. She promises that she won't. But I'm still trying to figure out what they're going for here. I don't know it, but I believe they're actually dating in real life, which might be interesting. Very, very interesting. Lashing out. Oh boy. Lashing out is Wendy Williams, WWE style. It was absolute cringe. Absolute cringe. So Lash Legend says she know a little thing or two about drafts, and then she talked about herself, where she broke a rebound record and ended up in the WNBA. Okay. Then she says Jade and Trey, that if Jade wants herself a real man, she needs to get a man more like, and then there's a picture of Ikemen Jiro, the most handsome man in NXT. Style strong. And she talked about Andre Chase, said he looks like Pee Wee Herman, and said he would never go off on her like he went off on his students. And, it is a talk show that is a real talk show. It is not an in-ring interview thing. Where they set up all that stuff in the ring. And you know what? I like that about it, is that it at least doesn't take a lot of time. This, you could have went and got yourself a glass of water, got yourself a nice little bag of Bugles, if that's your thing. Not me. I'm not really a chip guy. That's a lie. I love chips, but not Bugles. In any event, you could have went and got yourself something, come back and it's over. It's not one of those elongated KO shows, or what was it called, the Christian Corner or whatever the hell, the Miz TVs, where those things need to go on forever and ever. She had just had 3 subjects where she cracked some jokes in front of a canned crowd, and that was it. She tossed her hair. She was very stereotypical, which I am not a fan of. I am not a fan of very heavy stereotypes. And she, I guess she was just playing the character, where the character is supposed to be kind of like gossipy and very lipstick alley, which is, the gimmick. Okay, if that's how she was going to play the gimmick, I get it, because it fits the gimmick for her to be so dramatic and very love and hip hop ish. So I'm okay from that perspective. But I ultimately, I don't. It didn't make me laugh. The Jiro thing did, because first thing, as soon as I see his face, the first thing I think is style strong and the most handsome. Ikemen means handsome, and his colorful jackets, like that made me laugh. But other than that, her delivery wasn't really that funny. She kind of went through the jokes a little fast, which, again, this show moves at a nice clip, so nothing gets to hang around or linger too long. So even if it's bad, it's over pretty fast. So I don't know. I'm gonna give her strike one. I'm gonna give her a strike one on this one. We'll see if she does another one, if it's better. So, whatever. Glad they're not rushing them to the ring. Give her some time to build her character up, and maybe they'll build a storyline out of this. Maybe she'll be Cora Jade's first opponent. Who knows? All right, Ridge Holland versus Kyle O'Reilly. Kyle O'Reilly wins the match with the O'Connor roll. Ridge Holland is actually quite good. The thing that I have a problem with when it comes to Ridge Holland is that he's a little light. Specifically when he did like a backbreaker on here. He didn't lay it in. He basically he just politely touched Kyle O'Reilly to his knee, like boop. And that was it. And I was like, man, you're going to be a big, thick dude like that. You better lay it in. You better look like you're tearing Kyle O'Reilly in half. I get it. You want to be safe. You want to be as safe as possible. And Kyle O'Reilly's kind of a sickly guy too. I think he's got diabetes or something like that. So maybe you don't want to, destroy the guy. But lay your stuff in. Kyle O'Reilly used to work in Ring of Honor. He's used to people working stiff. He'd be okay. He's not like one of these flimsy girls out here who was running track or something like that. Now she's in a wrestling match. You can lay it in on an indie guy with a track record like Kyle O'Reilly. And that's really my only problem with Ridge Holland. He has the look. The presentation will catch up eventually. They'll find the right presentation for him. and he's a big dude, and so I think he's got a future. Afterwards, after he pinned Ridge Holland, which of course came because Pete Dunne distracted him, the distraction roll up, which I hate. They attacked Kyle O'Reilly, and Von Wagner immediately made the save, and there was a bunch of canned responses. Because I was looking at the crowd, I was like, that guy got a monster reaction. And then I looked at the crowd, and I was like, wait a minute. You would think with that reaction, people would be standing up. But no, they weren't. I'm like, they piped in some crowd noise for him. In any event, Von Wagner is pretty new, a.k.a. Cal Bloom. I don't know which one of the Beverly brothers he's the son of, but it doesn't matter anyway. In any event, this is going to be a tag team, I'm guessing. Kyle O'Reilly's going to be playing mentor for this guy, which ought to be fun. It ought to be okay. And then the final segment, once again, is our boy Tony D'Angelo, who will be making his debut next week, and I'm so excited. He was on the docks. And he says that his cousin runs the docks, and this is a place where it represents a transfer of items. And that his cousin runs the joint, and he expects people to skim, one or two. But more than that, he gets a phone call, and he has to go resolve his issues. It says it's a family tradition, and the tradition continues. Next week on NXT, I'm so excited about Soprano NXT. I'm really into the Goodfellas thing. This rules. Tony D'Angelo seems to have, I think people were jarred by the first promo and some people had a negative reaction, but I think most people are actually on the side of can't wait for Tony D'Angelo now. I really want to see what he could do. I was really interested once I heard he was doing, like, he was an amateur wrestler. I'm really interested in seeing what he can do. I like that they have so many amateur wrestlers that are floating around NXT now. And that is something that I think people are overlooking. I think people get too caught up in the names. They get too caught up in it's so bright and there's so many colors. And there's another thing I want to talk about in a moment in relation to the colors and everything. But I think what they're missing out on is how many amateur wrestlers that they have and how many really athletic guys that they have. And girls too. Not counting BFAP. But, how many athletic guys and girls that they have who have potential. Like they have a great class. Even the people who aren't ready yet, who have goofy names, they still have something. Like you can see it in like Grayson Waller. There's potential there. You can see it in Ridge Holland, Zion Quinn. There's potential in these people, And maybe it's because I said, the bar is low in relation to NXT because, you're watching developmental and you know it. But I'm in a position where I see the potential. I see why they signed some of these guys. And I enjoy watching them grow. It ought to be fun. Now, I did see something I thought was fairly interesting talking point when it comes to NXT. And it was in relation to our friend, the Drip God, Seth Rollins, who talked about, we can say shit now. So he was talking about, we can cuss now all of a sudden because they're cussing a lot on NXT. Braun Breaker cussed. Andre Chase cussed. They're doing sexual innuendo with the Garganos and that kind of stuff. And then somebody said, like, the colorful presentation is childlike and it clashes with the cursing and the sexual content of like toxic attraction and the condoms and everything. And I sat down and I thought about that. Like I literally took that criticism seriously. That is those two things in competition? And I came to the conclusion that the answer is no. And here's why. Now, what is in competition is the WWE's is overall a PG product. And I still think that even in PG, you can get away with cursing a certain number of times before you break the PG-14 barrier. You can also have some sexual content, but there was no real sexual content on NXT. All the women are covered up. Sure, you can see they're in black leather. It's kind of suggestive, but it's not overtly sexual. They're not doing anything overtly sexual. There's Well, there's a matter of fact, there is some. They're kind of licking their fingers and stuff like that, but it's not like over the top, sexual content. And the condoms aren't really considered sexual content either. I mean, if the condom is sexual content, then Indy Hartwell being in a bikini is sexy. It's more sex content than that. They never actually said the word sex. In fact, again, there was a lot of innuendo where Candace asked Johnny, like, "What do you think people do in beds?" And then he was like, "Oh, I know what they do in beds." And then he went and tried to stop it. But I get it. I get that people say, that sort of thing clashes. And I say, like, if you look at it kind of like those crazy Netflix cartoons, or like Family Guy, like for years, The Simpsons and Beavis and Butthead and stuff like that, where we always thought that animation and colorful things were for children. And then a time came along where they became adult cartoons. And I think people have it mixed up with the Y7 content, where, like if SpongeBob was like randomly say shit or randomly talk about sex, that would be jarring, right? That would be very interesting because that is a children's show. It is directly Y7. It's for children. In this situation, WWE is kind of a kid's show where it's watered down very, very heavily, but it's not necessarily a Y7, definitely for children show. You could push it at, at what they did. It was a limited amount of cursing, very limited. I think it's only about 3 shit bombs in it. And there was a very limited amount of sexual content. Nobody has to dress like they live in Iran. So, in order for it to prevent it from being sexual content. There was nothing Toxic Attraction wore or did that they couldn't get away with on Raw or SmackDown. And, now the cursing, some of the shit stuff, they couldn't do that on SmackDown because SmackDown's on broadcast television. So they would never actually be able to get away with that. They would be able to get away with it on Raw, and they would be able to get away with it on Peacock because they don't have to answer to the FCC. So that is an interesting twist. So I'm pretty sure they are very aware of how much that stuff they can have on their show before it crosses over into non-PG. But it's also PG because PG means parental guidance, meaning that you as the adult should be there with your child watching this product. So if your child is under the age of 14, if it was TV 14, your child would be able to watch it at 14 without anybody being around. But at TV 14, you should be there, paying attention. If it's PG rather, you should be there. And parental guidance. Now, should they tone down the cursing and turn down the quote unquote sexual content? I don't know, man. I don't know what's the right balance of that stuff. I don't feel like the quote sexual content is overtly sexual. I don't think it's too much. If you ask me, I don't think it's too much. I don't think the cursing is overwhelming either. I felt like the cursing was overwhelming on Dynamite that one night because they kept yelling shit like every 10 seconds. I felt like it was overwhelming. I think that it was well placed on NXT. As far as showing the intensity of Braun Breaker, he drops the S-bomb. The frustration of Andre Chase, he drops the S-bomb. But other than that, I really don't see... and they did bleep it on YouTube. So, but I don't think that they're going too far. I think that they are surprisingly pushing the edges a little bit. And I'm okay with it. So I don't have a problem with it. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, donate to the channel. I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace out.